The person who sent you this doesn't believe you when you say, I don't like musicals. Mainly because often a hatred of musicals is just internalized happy-phobia, in my opinion, but because they also saw your shoulders go like this the whole way through dancing through life. And frankly, the turnout stats for the new Wicked movie suggest to me that more people like musicals than we previously thought. The numbers are so colossal here that it's not just the theatre kids, it's not even the people who might see a casual musical at Christmas or on their birthday. No, these numbers are huge. And therefore I thought it might be the perfect time, just as we're all settling down for Christmas and we've got some time on our hands, to make a defence of the musical, especially if you're somebody who's never thought of yourself as a theatre kid, maybe cringed at the few musicals you've seen, and just see yourself as more of a serious person who doesn't like musicals. Well, I'm here to tell you that musicals aren't just for children, they're not just for obnoxious, loudmouth gobby people poking at me, and they're not just for people who like cheery stories and happy endings. Oh no. So I've put together a list of thoughts that I have on this idea that you think you don't like musicals, and I'd love to hear yours below. My first thought is, have we unpacked collectively the relationship between shame and art? Musicals in their current form are quite a new phenomenon, but we have to also understand that the idea of telling stories through song is older than probably any other art medium. Now, because musicals can be seen as so open and sincere and over the top, a bit much, I think for some people there comes into play a little bit of an element of shame. Like, am I allowed to like this? Is this cringy? Am I showing too much joy, too much excitement, too much emotion? The ways in which we let ourselves access joy says a lot about how our society has expected us to behave and have polite, small emotions, how we might have been treated as children when we displayed high levels of excitement or sadness, and how we're prepared to be seen by other people when we enjoy something, because musicals aren't really something that you can sit still for. There's often usually a very visual element to how you experience it, whether that's crying in the theatre or dancing along or tapping your foot. It's very hard to stay still when watching a musical, and that can feel very exposing if you're not at peace with letting yourself publicly like something. 2, the other reason you might not like musicals is because you might have seen only one type of musical, and that's mainly because there's a few of them that are really famous, and also because loads of new musicals don't get funded, or they don't get the same kind of airtime, they don't appear on Netflix. But they exist and they're incredible. I like that when I go to see a musical that I don't really know about, I have no idea what to expect. Apart from the fact that there will be music and dancing, it's not always predictable what kind of dancing, what kind of music, or what kind of story is going to be told. Say it with me, musicals are not a genre of theatre and film, they're an art form in themselves. So just because you've seen one musical and you didn't like it, it doesn't give us much data, it doesn't tell us very much. In the same way that if you don't like chocolate digestive biscuits, you don't swear off all confectionery forever. We're encouraged to treat musicals like that because there's simply only a few that are famous, and taking a look at Netflix's offering when you type in the word musicals says a freaking lot. The dregs. I don't think it's widely discussed enough the aspects to which musicals can add something and tell a completely different story, even when they're retelling an original tale that you might have watched or seen before. A great example is Elliot the Musical. I made a whole video essay on how I think the musical brings out the elements and the themes of the miners' strike in a way that simply couldn't be put on screen. The way it treats body and collective emotion and how group experiences happen, that's something that's really hard to capture in films and plays. There's no other art form where you're seeing the story of a whole collection or group or community of people all be able to tell you their emotions at once. In a film, it's very hard to capture a collective emotion or how a whole group of people are feeling and tell all of their stories at once. And in that way, I think musicals are way less about the individual, which is obviously, if you watch my channel, something that I'm really keen on. I love that about musicals, and I don't think you can capture that in a film. You can't capture how a whole crowd is feeling in the same kind of raw way as when a whole chorus sings a line like, "Do you hear the people sing?" or "No one mourns the wicked," or "I love these dark, dark hills forever and I won't leave them until I die." Number 4, musicals ask something of you, especially when you're watching them in the theatre or maybe a recording of the theatre show. There's way less special effects, you're less spoon-fed, and in that way I compare it a little bit more to reading, in that you get to create the world a little bit and like furnish it yourself. There's a lot more opportunity for imagination, and that's why I think people feel so emotionally connected to them, and some of us might cry in interviews when we star in musicals and then are asked about them. Hashtag let Ari and Cynthia cry, for God's sake. But in this world where big studios and companies are prioritizing ambient film and TV, where you're not expected to watch all the time and like be a lot more passive, Netflix, musicals ask an incredible amount of you. Not only that you populate the rest of the screen and what's going on in the world, but even with big musicals like Wicked, where they create a lot of the world and the buildings and all of the like set for you, there's so much going on screen, and there's like so much visual stimulation and like different things to notice and going on and Easter eggs and all that it's really hard to actually grasp it if you're also on your phone or you're distracted by something else. That's why they're so immersive, and that's why I think they are better for your brain. In fact, I actually think I read a stat like that. I'm gonna see if I can find it, but I'm pretty sure science agrees, she says. Famous last words. Number 5, they have a history of being really political, whether that's overtly, like Wicked, or even without the radical history of things like Rent, etc, etc, etc. I think intentional art-fueled escapism is radical in a world that has really freaking harsh realities that can beat your spirit down. This idea that we're demanded to watch the news cycle 24/7 and be plugged in all the time to everything that's going on in the world. Having strategic moments where you genuinely just want to escape, I think is part of the answer and is radical, okay? Absurdism and like hyper realness is such a great way to get out of your own head and combat stress and laugh at yourself a little bit. Musicals are often allowed, just by being themselves, to push that way further than any kind of film or TV show. If you've had an awful day on the bad news screen and you're worried about everything that's going on in the world, what's going to help you more? Immersing yourself in The Handmaid's Tale and like pretending that you're heavy breathing under an incredibly warm bonnet for 40 minutes, or watching a huge cast of brightly dressed triple threat athletes whirl their flesh prisons around the screen, showing you how great it is to be alive and have a body and be able to use it, whirling about like nothing really matters and also everything matters all at once. I know what's my R&R, no offense Margaret Atwood, I think you're great, but I can't relax to that. If you vaguely enjoyed Wicked and you would like to dip your toe into other musicals, just pick anything. I think the idea of just like being like, I have never really dipped my toe into this genre before. Imagine if you'd never seen a play before, or you'd never listened to a music app. That's another thing that's absurd about musicals. Everybody freaking loves music and everybody freaking loves drama, but when you put them together, somehow it's lowbrow and silly. Just like with comics, like everybody likes art and drawings and everybody likes stories, but when they're comics, they're not seen as literature. It's the same with musicals, and I don't freaking get it. Anyway, if you would like to try some musicals, I had to think about ones that might be a little bit more off the beaten path for people who might have just seen like 1 or 2 of the big ones and don't think they're for them. One is Tik Tik Boom. Great if you already like Andrew Garfield. I think it's a bit more of an unusual one to introduce you to things, and it might like look a bit more what you're used to watching in just like a normal film. You might want to try a jukebox musical. That's where like an artist's discography is put into a musical, and all the music is just like stuff you'll already recognize, and like pick one of like a band you already like. So that could be Mamma Mia, We Will Rock You, Bohemian Rhapsody, Moulin Rouge, that kind of thing. I don't know if this is available to watch online yet, but if you really like I get emotional about the idea of like people pulling together in the face of disaster and like community stories, then I think you'd really like Come From Away. And then in the opposite direction, if you don't really like the, like you think what cringes you out about musicals is the idea of like a whole cast like in Enchanted, like singing and dancing and doing the splits, then you might like one of the musicals where there's like just 2 people on stage, like Daddy Longlegs, Ernest Shackleton Loves Me. Huge fave. If you're interested in like Victorian explorers and like experimental music mixing, then like yes. Or what's the other one that's 2 people? Oh yeah, John and Jen, A Little Known Gem. I'll link where you can watch those online below if you're interested. But to end the video, I just wanted to read from a book that I read a couple of years ago and hasn't left me since. It's been itching in the back of my brain for ages and I really love it. So let me just read you a page from that and then I'll let you go. This is Breaking Into Song, Why You Shouldn't Hate Musicals by Adam Lenson. Some audiences want things to be neat and tidy. They want to be in control. They want theatre to resemble the parts of their life that they have lived through and understand. They want words spoken that give rise to ideas. They want people to talk of emotion and psychology, but they want to see it from a distance. They don't want to have to feel it and touch it. They don't want it to reach out and touch them. They want it to be polite. And here seems to be the major reason for why people don't like musicals, because musicals asks for something unusual from an audience. They ask an audience to risk getting something on themselves and on their clothes and in their hair. Musicals ask them to let something get under their skin. More than that, musicals ask audiences to give permission to allow themselves to get overwhelmed, to be given too much information for them to process. Musicals are not something to be looked at from a distance. They are something you need to allow near you. They might get on your clothes. They might get inside your head. They might require longer to forget, but that doesn't make them worse. It just means they might take you some time to get used to. There are many that seem unwilling to take that time, people who want theatre to just be one idea at a time, but I want my theatre to be technicolor. I want it to be polyphonic. I want it to be too much. I want it to allow me the rare feeling of touching things and holding things that are magical and impossible. I want the choice of where to look and what to hear and what to know. I want to see it from my own perspective. If you think theatre is about thinking thoughts and feeling feelings, you may think musicals aren't for you. You may want to do those things one at a time. You blame musicals for making you feel uncomfortable, for implicating you, for involving you, for asking something of you. You may want to sit far enough away that you never get any theatre splash on your clothes. But I wonder if the best things in life require something in return, require balance and sharing and reciprocity. If the best things in life are not one-sided rants, but conversations, are not one voice, then another, but are a community of voices, a choir, a debate, a parliament. Musicals are not something you can just look at. You have to be a part of them. And if you want to be a part, then of course that's okay, but don't blame musicals for that. That isn't their fault, it's yours. Adam! God damn. Thank you so much for watching this video. Send this to somebody for whom you would like to defend your love of musicals too. I hope you have a really cozy Christmas period and you curl up with some musical faves. I'm going to leave a list of some of my favourite musicals below if you'd like to try them out, just because I'm feeling festive and like sharing. I'd like this to be infectious. This video is made possible by the Gumption Club, who tip me per video to make sure these videos keep happening and I get to make videos about whatever I freaking like. So if I'm just going to defend musicals for 20 minutes, then I'm allowed to. I also have a book that just came out, so if you're interested in that, it's here. It's called Half-Assed Human, and if anybody wants to commission the musical, I am open to suggestions. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know your favourite musical recommendations below, especially for people who don't think they like musicals but actually do. Frog Snug out.